Let's have a look at the new features of QBOT V3 Pro. Some features are enhancements over QBOT V3, and some are brand new features that will knock your socks off. Let's get started. Over here, if you look at our screen, we have the QBOT V3 Pro launch screen, and you'll notice that there's a couple of new buttons over here on the side, Designer and Text Quilting. And we have some enhancements to the existing features of QBOT V3, and then those new Designer and Text features are really amazing. Let's get started with some of the enhancements to the QBOT V3 app that are all in QBOT V3 Pro. First, let's go into pattern quilting, and we're going to pretend right now, and I'll use my offset, we're going to pretend that we're going to quilt in a block, and I'll set my points. One of the enhancements that we've made is that during the time when you're choosing a design, you get to preview the design from the left-hand menu. So if we go into blocks, for instance, and we say we want to put in this design right here, we can press and hold that and see an enlargement of the design to see the detail in the design. So if we like the design, we can use it, and if we don't, we can cancel out and select another one. So we say we cancel out of that. It's really helpful when we're doing things with edge to edge and borders, where lots of these designs look like just little lines here. So without having to place that design and then take it out, all we have to do is tap and hold, and we can see what the design looks like before selecting it. One of the next features that we have is echo quilting. We've added echo quilting to line quilting, 4-point quick scale, and even into pattern quilting, so that once the design has been quilted, you can choose to echo it. So let's have a look at how that would work with line quilting, for instance. So in line quilting here, we'll select our block like we just did before, and just like that. And we're going to do a closed path. We'll say done, and then move to the start position. And what I'm going to do here is I'll just pretend to go through this design so we can get to that echo feature. So I'll press go, and it's going to quilt that out. Now when we're done, it's quilted out the little frame, as we would normally do in line quilting. Now let's do the echo on the inside of that. So we'll choose echo, and then let's just do one echo. So I'll do it concentrically, not a spiral. I'll choose 1. And let's just move that distance inside the frame. And we'll do mitered corners, so it'll be a perfect echo. Now that we've done that, we press done and move to start. And from there, we can do an echo inside that quilted boundary that we did with line quilting. Very easy and intuitive. The next feature I want to talk about is the enhancements we've made to 4-point quick scale. We've added a margin capability and the ability to echo. So let's demonstrate both of those real quick. I'm at my tablet, I choose 4-point quick scale. I'm going to use my offset, which allows me to use my laser precision pointer, which gets me really accurate selection points rather than trying to sight down the needle and find it in the middle of the hopping foot. I just use my precision pointer and takes all of that guesswork away. And I'm going to follow the instructions up here, and it says choose upper right point. So I'm going to choose my upper right point on this block. And in V3 Pro with the precision pointer, what we're going to do is choose the upper right. No guesswork inside those boundaries. We're going to choose that point right at what would be the seam, or what I have on my test fabric here is where the little piece of fabric that I've laid on top, right at the edge. And I can do that because I have the new margin feature. So I'm going to choose directly at those points. Just like that. Now, like always, we get to choose our design. So I'm going to do a quick Fast Tracks design here. I think that one will go nicely. And we have a new feature here called margin/gap. We can select a margin to put on the boundary that's inside the boundary. So let's put in a boundary of 3/8 of an inch, because I want to do a 1/4 inch echo around the design when I'm done. So let's do that, this gap or margin first. So I'm going to type in 3/8 of an inch or 0.375. And it places the design in that area away from the boundaries, 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to move to the start point and we're going to quilt this one out. Okay, that's done. Pull up my bobbin thread and trim. And now on the left-hand panel on the app screen, we see a new button called Echo. We can press that, Echo, and lots of lines come up right now, but let's just focus on what we want to do for this particular design. We want to have a 1/4 inch echo. So if we've put in our design with a 3/8 boundary and put a 1/4 inch echo around it, we should have an 1/8 of an inch to the boundary left over so that nothing spills over the boundary itself. So let's also go down to the next selection, which is choose corner style. I'm going to do a round corner, and I'm going to, the next choice is whether we want to do a spiral or concentric. We're going to do a spiral. A concentric, and then we're going to choose just one echo. And there it appears around the design right there. Let's go back and forth here, and you can see it. So let's go ahead and echo that. We'll say done. Move to start point. And press go. And just like that, we've done an echo around a design that was done in 4-point quick scale using the margin and or gap function and the new echo around the design function. We have made a great change to the crosshatch feature. In V3, we could place a crosshatch and place it around objects. Everything's great. In V3 Pro, we've taken it to the next level and being able to now move the crosshatch within the design area to align the crosshatch precisely to elements on the quilt. Let's have a look at that. I'll pull up my bobbin thread here. Exit out of our previous thing, and we'll go right into crosshatch. And in crosshatch, let's choose our quilting area. We're going to use the precision offset again here. Let me go back and do that point just to be sure. There we go. There we go. And I'm not going to do an inner boundary shape. And now on our left-hand side, we have some great functions. We have a fine-tune command up in the upper left. We have our spacing, where we how we space the crosshatch, what the spacing is for the crosshatch. And then we have the direction angle, intersecting angle, and the stitch outer boundary, jump stitch outer boundary, inner boundary stitch, and jump stitch inner boundary functions. What I want to do here is I'm going to change my spacing to 0.75, just 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to rotate it using 2 fingers. I will rotate it to get it close like that, so that it's very close to the upper slanted line. No particular reason, just for an example. But what we can do now is we can use 1 finger and move the crosshatch design within that boundary. So I'm just going to move this, and I'm going to put something right up at that upper corner, right there, up in this upper corner, right here. I'm going to align things with that upper corner. Now, I can zoom into that now. I press my zoom button, I move it over, and I magnify it. And I can see that upper corner. Now, I can use the fine-tune button to put that right in the corner so it looks perfect. Now, I will stitch the outer boundary. I think that'll look better. And I'll press done and move to start. Now, as that's quilting, one of the neat things about this feature is it allows you to do, or attempt to do, because things move when you do cross-hatching, but it gets you a lot closer when you're doing a cross-hatching in a larger area and you need to align the first part of the crosshatch with the second part of the crosshatch. This gives you a way to tweak that a little bit and fine-tune the crosshatches to meet up so that you can do larger areas than what you could do just with one pass in the throat space of the sewing machine. All right, that's done, and let's move on to the next feature that is guaranteed to knock your socks off. What is the one thing when you're quilting that makes you the most anxious? For me, it is the sashing strip or border strip or inner border that is not perfectly straight. It's the one, you know what I'm talking about. It goes like this. When you sight down the quilt, what you think is straight when it's sitting on the floor, you find out has a nice bow in it or a nice S shape. And then you try to quilt it with any automated quilting method that you have, and no matter what you do, it looks, the automated quilting, the QBOT quilting is perfect, and the quilt is wavy. So, to get around that, at the design stage, you may say, well, I guess I'm going to do an all-over quilt, and we're just going to hide that problem altogether. We'll just edge to edge all the way down the whole thing and be done with it. Well, we've got a feature for you now that is going to change all of that, and it's called Smart Fit. And on my frame right here, I have a piece of fabric that I've cut and placed to mimic what would be considered the worst case scenario. It has got a wave in it, and it's pretty steep, pretty angular. You don't even have to sight down the quilt to see how bad this is. So, no problem now. We just go into pattern quilting, and I'm using my laser pointer, precision pointer again. It makes this process a lot easier, and especially for these new features where precision is very important, because I have to jump ahead to tell you why it's important. It's because with the Smart Fit feature, we also have that margin or gap to put in our design to keep it away from the boundary. So the most important thing is the precision choice of the boundary, and then we let the software do the work and make the margin the correct thing and the correct size, and everything comes out great. So let's just get started. I'll start choosing points. As always, I can either tap the screen, tap the set point button, or say OK. And I'm going to select points about once every inch here. And just as a general rule, not to really go off on a tangent here about this feature, but when you're selecting points, if it's a very gradual line or a very gradual curve, you can open up your spacing because you don't need that many points to define that curvature. But if you have a curve that's really sharp, then you do need to have very closely defined points to make sure that you capture the sharper curve. So I'm just going to select points going down the line here. All right, I've got my boundary done. I don't want to set an inner boundary shape right now. And you can see that that is one crazy shape. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, right? This is going to be bad. Well, maybe not. Let's go into edge to edge, and we're going to pick a design here that I like to use. It's this. I'll press and hold it. You can see it. It's that button flower design. So I'm going to select that one. And I'm going to modify it. So I'm going to slide this over. I'm going to make the flowers fit. Yeah, that's about like what I would want it right there. And I'll chain it. Extra one for good measure. And as you can see, if we tried to quilt it that way, it would be outside the boundaries of the sashing or the inner border or whatever, outer border, whatever this would have been. So what would we do? We'd make it small so that it would fit in there like that. Well, now it kind of looks ridiculous on the other side of the equation. It doesn't look that great either. So what we do is we just get this to about what we would like to see, something like that. And we go up into the upper left and we press the Smart Fit button. We just go boop. Now we have to put in a margin. Okay, well, probably 1/8 of an inch is a good idea here, maybe 3/16 of an inch. So let's put in 1/8 would have been 0.125, 3/16, 0.188. Let's put in maybe 0.150 is our boundary. Say OK. And just like that, it has placed the design and morphed it to fit into the boundary. Now, a little bit of math here. Things get weird at the boundaries, at the left and right boundary. And why is that? Well, you can find, mathematically speaking, when you have a curve and it's something like this, you can find a mean line between everything, and we do all kinds of math stuff and transformations of this design. But the ends, where we have this vertical thing, the mathematics gets really weird. So you'll see little artifacts, what we call artifacts, at the end points. Now, if you're doing an edge-to-edge type of thing, like on a border where you're using it as an edge-to-edge, and this is out on the sides, no big deal. You don't even have to worry about it. But if it's on the interior, like an inner border, and it's coming to an end, that's where you do kind of have to play with it. So what we're going to do to play with that is we'll go into our scale in our proportion button. We're going to turn proportion off, and then we're going to stretch the design just a little bit. So here it's at 43.47 inches. I'm just going to take that to 44 inches and see if the artifacts, those little strange things, are outside the border. And it turns out that they are. I'm looking at the right and I see that it's outside the boundary there. I'm going to have to nudge this back in because I touched the screen, and I look at the left and it also seems to be nice. So I'm going to nudge this a little bit, make sure it's not touching any other parts of the boundary. It looks good on the bottom. It looks good on the top. And I am going to say trim and then to boundary. Press OK. Press done. Now it has trimmed that to the boundary, fitted into this really strange shape, and now we're back to normal. We just press move to start and it's going to quilt it out. This feature will save you hours, whether it's at the computer trying to manipulate a design to make it fit to a very specific shape for one quilt that you will never do again, or if you're worrying about it, like what am I going to do design-wise to fill in this part that is such a disaster area, or do I have to take the quilt apart and then fix it, whether it's fixing it for yourself or for the customer. All of that time has now been given back to you by a simple press of that Smart Fit button. So there you have it. Very easily, what we've done is we've selected the points of the boundary, not worried a bit, placed our design, get a basic understanding of how the design should be sized. You know, you have to kind of, with your eye, look at how tall it should be, and you make it length using the the chain feature. And then if it looks pretty good, like it should fit, press the Smart Fit, and then boom, it is placed perfectly with a margin. Looks like 0.15 inches to me, like what we had input, thank goodness, right? And it looks great. So I've shown a really terrible example, meaning it is a great example of something that is terrible. If this came in on a quilt and this were actually a border, it better have been an art quilt and this better have been an art border because the piecing would have been really bad. But I wanted to show this example as kind of an extreme thing. And when you do get those quilts that, you know, you would have shied away from doing those sashings or borders, now, easy, just push in a button. So let's go into text quilting. All we need to do is press the button on the home screen. And on the left-hand panel, we'll see a couple of buttons. The first one is the obvious one that we want to press, and that's Enter Text. So we press that button and we enter our text. It's as easy as that. So let's just have some fun here, and then we'll say QBOT V3 Pro. And there we have the text is now generated in a field. Now it's just a design at this point. Now let's look at the fonts that we have to choose from. 4 fonts are given with the app. One's called Comic Book, one's Futura, Script, and Sign Painter. And this is just a leaping off point. You can install any TrueType font into the QBOT app and use that. So if you have a favorite script font or a favorite block font, go ahead and install it. And we'll cover that in another video. But let's look at the different fonts. There's the Comic Book one. Here's Futura. Here's the Script. And here is Sign Painter. Now, this Sign Painter one and maybe the script one, nope, the Sign Painter one is a good example here of what happens when the letters overlap. And this can be, you know, there's lots of ways to take care of this. Maybe you want letters to overlap, but on this one in the Pro, the R and the O, you can see the R overlaps the O. Well, we have a little button for that. It's called Remove Overlap. We press that, and it automatically links those letters. Now, we're ready to quilt this, but we need to save it first. So we're going to save the pattern, and we'll call it QBOT Pro. Press OK, and now the file is saved. Now we can go back to the home screen, and then all we need to do is pattern quilting. I'm going to use my precision pointer again to just outline this block. And on my demonstration block here, I have it actually as a block. But on your quilt, this could be anywhere on the quilt. You just need to select the area that you want to quilt into. There we go. Press done. No inner boundary shape, and then we'll go to Saved Patterns and QBOT V3 Pro. There it is, installed and ready to go. Now we can modify it just like any other design. We can modify it, shrink it down, place it a little bit better. Q is always an interesting letter because it goes below the normal line of quilting, or normal line of the font, the base line. But here we have it aligned, everything looks good, done. And then we move to start. And so now we're going to quilt this out, and we'll fast forward through this, and we'll then, after this is done, we'll show you the designer feature. So there you have it right there. Perfect lettering. All we have to do is enter in the text, choose the font, save the design, pattern quilting, place the design and quilt it out. Very easy to do with the new text quilting feature. That saves going to have to use a different software program on a PC or on a laptop or something like that, where you'd have to generate all of that text. So now we can just generate it right there in the app, saves it, and it's very easy to do. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about is the designer feature. This, similar to the Smart Fit feature, is a real game changer for QBOT V3 and the QBOT V3 environment. Now we have the ability to off the quilt or on the quilt, but if you want to, you can use the tablet off the quilt to choose an area and design and link different designs together. So instead of having to do an edge to edge and then an overlay modify for each row, if you're into some kind of production quilting, or you have a quilt that is going to be an edge to edge type of quilt, you can design all of the edge to edge quilting for your throat space and go back 1, 2, maybe 3 passes in one shot. So let's give that a go and see what that looks like. I'll exit out of my text quilting and I'll go into designer. And I'm going to pretend now that I'm going to design off of the quilt, where I'm going to place in a defined area, and then I'm going to load up some designs, link them, and save that design for later use. So let's do it. I'm going to design off the quilt. I'm going to place in, let's say it's a 60-inch width, and my height for this machine, I think I can do maybe 15 inches. That's safe. So I'll say 15. So 60 by 15. So similar to in pattern quilting, the display looks just the same right now, but there are key differences. One is at the bottom here, if you look right down there, you see this pull-up bar. It doesn't have anything in it yet. And then on our left-hand panel, we have our similar choose design. So we're going to choose a design, and these are what we call seeds. So like plant seeds or seeds for a tree, each one of these designs that we're going to put in is a seed that then we can modify within the designer. Now, I think for a 15-inch height on this type of quilt, I would probably put in 3 rows. So in this example, I'm just going to choose 3 seeds and build out the design. So let me do that. I'm going to go to edge here, and I'm going to choose that button flower that I used earlier right there, and that's 1 seed. Now if I pull up the bottom, you can see I've got 1 design in there. So let me add the second seed, and I'm going to do an edge-to-edge nested design using the same design for each row, which is fairly standard. So I'm going to choose that design again, and I'm going to press it a 3rd time. So now if I pull up my bottom panel, you can see the 3 different seeds are located there. Each of those are then editable in the next step. So let's press done, and now we have the edit screen, and we're going to edit each of those seeds. So first one, I'm going to do the first one here, and I'm going to scale that, and I'm going to say 5 inches. I'm going to divide the 15, and I'm going to divide it by 3. I'll say 5 and see what that looks like. So there's my first seed, and then I'll modify my second seed. Now when you press the selection to select the seed that you want to modify, it turns blue. That's the indication that that's the active layer. And I'm going to change that also to 5 inches tall, and I'll place it just roughly in the location over there. And then I'm going to modify my third seed, and I will also make that 5 inches. And we'll see how that looks. And that looks pretty good for that area. And remember, the intention is to go marching down the quilt, and we're going to use this feature to link everything together so that we can get the machine going and then maybe do some piecing or some other thing while the QBOT is doing its job. Well, now we go back to the first one, and we're going to chain it so it goes across the quilt, and I'm going to move it so that the start is a little bit nicer over there on the left. Okay, then I go into my next row, and I'll chain it, and I'm going to place it so that it looks a little bit nicer and lined up nicely, and I can hit the zoom button and zoom in to see how everything is placed, and then zoom back out. And then third, I will nest this one over just a bit, down a bit, chain it, and now we're done. Now, because I'm just setting this up and I really don't know the width of my quilt, it could be a little more than 60 inches or a little less than 60 inches. I'm not going to trim any of these at this stage. I'm going to click done here, and then we move to the next menu, which is the linking between the two. But I did make one error, because remember, the first row is going to quilt from left to right, and then the second row we really want it to quilt from right to left. And I didn't make that reverse path change. So I need to go back into my second row here, and then there's a button right here, reverse path. And when I reverse the path, it turns orange to let me know that it's going backwards or from right to left rather than conventionally left to right. So I'm done with that. I press done. And now you see the design. We have the first layer or first row going across from left to right. The second row, because it's orange, means it's going from right to left. And then we have the third row. I'm going to link it with a straight line, and then I'm going to save it. So I'm going to call this E2E test. And there it is, it's done. Now let's go into pattern quilting. And I'm going to use my offset again, and I'm just going to select an area because this, I'm not going to quilt all of this out. I'm just going to show you how easy it is. And you can see how that design fills this space. And I'm choosing, it's almost 60 inches, but not quite, but I am making sure that I am close to my 15 inches. And we'll select the last point. Done, no inner boundary, saved patterns. Here's my edge-to-edge test. And I'm going to modify it. I'm going to scale it to 100%. And there it is, scaled to 100%. I will nudge it over just a little bit, and I will turn trim on my left and right on, and press done. And it automatically trims the design. And what you can see is that it will start in the upper left and end in the lower right. So we can move to start. And then we're ready to go. And it's as simple as that. I hope you like seeing the new features in V3 Pro. The designer feature, text feature, new crosshatch, new 4-point scaling, the smart fit, the margins that we have around the designs in 4-point quick scale and in the smart fit, the designer feature being able to link the designs together to create one design to fill the space, or being able to link individual designs, which I did not show, but we'll do a video on that. All of those features are meant to make your life easier and make quilting with QBOT that much more fun.